Even when he went to South Africa, he went on his own accord. He paid for himself to go. He was looking after himself. Government wasn't looking after Edgar Lungu in his last few months. No. In the last few years, I think, a year plus. No. I know there's a rush that this must be rushed. Let's get over and done with this. We've got a nation to run. But if you do this in a hurried manner, you're going to hurt a lot more people than you think as a government, and you're going to lose respect and lose face internationally, because people will be saying, but where was the family? For example, I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm saying as an example, if you decide that the remains of the late president arrive at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport tomorrow, the government says we're taking over, this is a state funeral, as obvious Mwalitita was suggesting. And then Edgar Lungu, Tasila, Eliso, Chiesu, Jane, Willie, and the other children decide we are not coming. Do what you want. Do you see the impasse? We must be very careful.
Watch the entire video, my lovely viewers, from start to finish, to get the whole thing. Without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you lovely viewers.
Now, welcome once again. To begin with, let's try to remember, let's begin by remembering the man that's the former president of this country, that's the 60th Republican president. What would you describe as the most defining legacy of our president, not necessarily as a politician, but that of a Zambian?
As a Zambian, he was quick to forgive. He was very quick to seek reconciliation, quick to admit when he was wrong, and very quick to try and unify people from different walks of life for the betterment of this country. I recall that his rise to power, to prominency, was not without difficulties. It was a journey that was, very difficult, because many people did not expect that he would rise to be the president of this country. After the death of the 5th Republican president, Mr. Michael Chilufya-Sata, Edgar Lungu as an individual was not too ambitious to take over the leadership of the PF, let alone the nation. But I think circumstances propelled him to accept the role that he eventually took up and became our 6th Republican president. So I remember him as a man who wanted unity, peace, and a very unified nation.
Your name always comes up.
Yes.
On the ascendance of ECL to presidency, yes. His first election. Before we talk about that period, when did you and ECL's paths cross?
As professionals, our paths crossed when, as a senior lawyer, we used to meet at court. We used to meet at bar association meetings. We used to meet at seminars. We used to meet in the corridors of the legal fraternity. So we knew each other from that perspective. He was always humble, quiet spoken, but very focused lawyer. And I remember him being a seasoned legal officer, in the various institutions that he worked in. I remember him being legal counsel, I think, for one or two institutions, ZISC. He was at ZCCM, he was at Barclays Bank, and I think he eventually ended up with a law firm called Massier and Company. So that's how I remember his professional life. But we used to meet several times, different cases. Not one to, take up very big cases in the criminal world, so to speak. But he did take up cases. I think I remember one time he was defending the former permanent secretary, Stella Chilanda. I think I recall that case because there were a lot of intricacies in that case. So yeah, we used to meet in those areas.
And your name was associated with him being appointed in his first term.
Yes.
Tell us about that moment, because every time ECO is mentioned in his first presidency,
yes,
your name is alongside part and parcel of that discussion.
After the death of Sata, like I said, ECO called me to go and see him. He was then acting president. He used to live at Leonica Close, and that was around 01 something in the morning. And I went to his home. I found him there with some officials, and he simply said, "You're a lawyer. I've asked you here because Vamdala Vashak London," meaning the 5th Republican President Basad. And he said they needed my help because they knew that I was part of the architects in strategically planning Basata's elections since 2006, 2008, and eventually 2011 when he succeeded at the presidency. So I felt that he had recognized my talent, and I was willing to assist. And that's where our job began together, more intricately, because we then didn't let go of each other. Everything he did until the Mulungushi Convention, the escort sagas, our waking up of one or two judges to have an injunction.
Especially, yeah, because usually when your name is mentioned, there's always that point of KBF some judges.
Yes, I mean, it's a measure of pride for me, because if you've known how to navigate the corridors of justice in the legal fraternity, you know that justice doesn't sleep. And it will only be a foolish lawyer who's going to be thrust with an emergency, but he's going to say, "I'll wait until morning." No, you act as the circumstances determine. I remember we had left, they had left with Wawili Nsanda, Basamio Mukupa, and I think a few other officials, Kaiser Zulu, I think the vice president then, Manonge Wina. They had left at the convention in Kabwe and driven to Lusaka. I was just about to have my supper with my team. Then Kaiser Zulu phoned and said the president-elect or the presidential candidate wanted to see me. And I said, "This time?" He says, "Yes, you better drive to Lusaka now." So we didn't even eat. We just stopped what we're doing, bundled up, sped off and came to Lusaka, straight to Leonica. And he says, "We have a problem. Guy Scott and his friends are trying to hold a second convention." I said, "That can't happen." And he says, "Well, you're the lawyer, you know what to do." So I put up a team of lawyers that were around me then. I was with Tutu Anguluwe, I was with Skwana, and I can't remember the fourth lawyer. But we decided that we're going to work through the night. No secretaries, no nothing. It was just fingers until we typed out all the documentation that we required. Eventually, we had to get the chief marshal of the High Court to open the court around 02:03 in the morning. We had the document dumped. We went to wake up the late Judge Charlie, who was staying around the American Embassy in Ibexhill. He allocated the case as procedure would demand. He was judge in charge. He allocated the case to a judge who lived across town in Roma Township. We drove to Roma Township to the judge who had been allocated the case. And the judge had the case and granted the injunction. By morning time, I was presenting the injunction to the candidate, and I said, well, it's done, but we still had to get the injunction to Kabwe, and we did it.
Yeah, because the description or the reaction, mostly when commentators are discussing that period of during injunction, they always associate it with a sinister manipulative move.
There was nothing sinister about it, Alex. It was legal engineering at its best. Nobody can say that what the judges did was illegal. None of those judges has been reported to the Judicial Complaints Commission. Whatever they did was above board. Late Judge Tali has never been reported. He went to his grave a happy man. The judge who granted us the injunction is still working today, and I'm proud to say one of the most brilliant minds we have today. There was nothing wrong there. No one is going to tell me that waking up a judge to sign an injunction in the night when you have an emergency is an illegality. It doesn't work like that. It's just about knowing how to navigate the legal procedures. There's nothing wrong there. And we knew that we had a candidate at that time in the PF, and no one was going to change that. Guy Scott had his own, machinations going on the one side. We were not going to allow that. And so we didn't want any fights. We'd rather work in the night as we did, wave an injunction in the morning and tell them, beat that. And that's what we did. I have no regrets. I'm not ashamed. And that is how ECO became our 6th Republican president. I'm very proud of what I did.
On to the next chapter. Yes, you were part and a parcel of the people that delivered that first presidency.
Yes.
As we remember, the 60th Republican president. Describe his presidency. You talked about, in brief, a man who was easy to forgive. He was a unifier. But in your own words, how would you describe his presidency?
I think the initial period was rather short. That the elections took place on the 20th of January 2015. He won those elections, and we had to allow him to settle. And he was asking us every so often, what is it that was on the table with Basata's legacy? And we told him the man wanted his infrastructure built. He understood that without infrastructure, the nation was going to move forward. And he embraced that. After that, some of us faded off and allowed him to continue. You will understand that the Constitution at the time, the president had to find the cabinet already in place. So he didn't have much changes to make. 16. On the 5th of January 2016, I think that's when he signed the amended constitution. And that's when the clause of the running mate came in, 50+1 and all the other things. The initial period, it was the 1996 constitution. So legally, he was bound until the constitution was changed in 2016. His legacy was one of wanting to respect what Basata intended and what Basata had done.
Sure.
The PF was running on the vision of Basata, and I think there was a bit of misunderstanding. In one of his interviews, he said he didn't really have his own vision, but he was going to execute the vision of Basata. That went off the hook with some people. He has no vision, he has this and that. But he was just being respectful. In my view, he knew that this was not really his presidency. His presidency, I think, came in 2016 in August when he won the second term. I mean, that was, for me, his full term. Yeah.
Right. And your description of his term now? Well,
not much changed. The vision was still there. The PF was following the same manuscript. He now embarked on road infrastructure to follow up where Basata had left. The building of bridges, the building of hospitals, schools, and not that it was all smooth sailing, because again, as a president, you delegate to your ministers, to your government officials, to your other people to execute the policies of government. Some were done well, others no. The toll gates came up, as you saw. New prisons were built, like Mwembeshi. That was a very good, legally speaking. I wished more prisons were built. I wished Central Prison was refurbished. That's at Chimbokaira. I wished Kamola Remand Prison was rebuilt or extended. Other prisons also. But I know that some office buildings came up, like the Ministry of Local Government. That's a new building. I know that where Ministry of Home Affairs is sitting out the new buildings. So there was a whole lot of things that happened. In terms of infrastructure, I think the PF under Lungu performed far much better than the UPND has done in the last four years. Yeah.
And
the bridge at Kazungula, I must add, because that was also a marathon project. Some Koreans came in to build the bridge. It was between the three nations, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, but it worked. The bridge is standing. No one can say that the Kazungula bridge was built by UP. No, the UPND has not built any infrastructure. I know for a fact that even the cannery, the Minilunga pineapple cannery, which is now functioning, although not much production is going on, that was done under PF as well. So in terms of, they had a plan which they were following and executing. So that improved a lot of infrastructure development. Schools, I know a lot of schools were built.
Sure.
Yeah, much more schools were built than we see today under the CDF program, because the schools were being built under the Ministry of Infrastructure as government, not leaving everything to CDF. No, because CDF, as you know, has come with its own machinations, its own problems and things like that. But I think the Lungu government was more centralized.
Sure.
The main government was taking center stage and executing the developmental plan. Their CDF was, I think, 1.6 million kwacha. It was to supplement whatever was going on in the constituencies, not to allow the constituencies to take center stage for development, because the policies are government anyway. So the government took that role.
The other most noticeable engagement of the 60th Republican president was putting to pen the constitutional amendment.
Yes.
And in his words, though not exactly, is that I'm going to sign with my eyes closed.
I remember him rolling into Hero Stadium and signing that document on the 5th of January 2016. And I thought that was a landmark, because he was taking a chance at +1 politically in terms of elections. He was taking a chance at the running mate clause. He was taking a chance at some changes that were made to the constitution with regard to elections. So, but it worked out well, because come August 2016, the PF still prevailed, and we strategically aligned our planning and electoral plans to perfection. And I think one morning that I remember vividly is the phone call coming through, and all he said is, "Babwadia, well done, thank you, we have won again." And I said, "Your Excellency, you're welcome. When you have time, please come and see Samuel Mukupa. We have a little discussion to have," things like that. But to me, thank you was all right. It was fine.
I'm bringing this issue of the constitutional amendment, the constitutional amendment of 2016, with an interest, though not really drifting away from why we're here. Is do you think much would have been done in terms of look at our constitution, the containment, and because this is the current discussion now?
Yes. If you recall, the constitutional amendments were being done under the late Michael Chilufya.
Sure.
So some of the changes, clauses, the then Minister of Justice, my older brother, State Counsel Winter Kavimba, was hesitant in presenting it, as it were. But Lungu said, look, better we take this decision now than having another review and another commission to look into this and that. So that's why I'm saying he took a decision. It was a bold decision in allowing that, and he said, I'll sign it. So I salute him for that, because he was bold enough to say, let's get on with it. Let's not give the Zambians the impression we're scared of 50+1. Let's give the Zambians the impression, let's not give the Zambians the impression we're scared of a running mate clause. Let's just go. If amendments were to come later, so be it. And that's, I signed that thing. And I remember one of my very good lecturers at university at the time was one of the main architects to that constitution, Dr. Ngosa Simbiakula, a very astute lecturer. And I think kudos to him, because he took up the mantle. And I think at the signing ceremony, the president singled him out and thanked him because he was one of the main guys in drafting the constitution at the time.
Last week,
it wasn't perfect, but it was done. Yes.
Okay. I'm sure in our future engagements, we can concentrate mainly on the constitution process,
right,
historically, where we are and what we want to achieve as a country. But moving on, last week, news filtered that the 60th Republican president has died. Was later confirmed by the family and other senior members of the Patriotic Front, the family, government later. So what came to your mind when you heard that the person called your colleague, you had a fruitful friendship? Of course, we got to know it as Zambians, especially in 2016. That friendship took a break politically,
yes,
at some point, and later, we can now safely say that in his later years, you rejoined, you went back to him with a view of strengthening the opposition front in this country. But before we talk about Zambia Must Prosper status now with the PF and the rest of the opposition in line with the passing of the 60th Republican president, let's talk about that day on Thursday. What went through your mind when you heard that Iseo has died?
Capture this. I had been out of the country, and when I got back, there was a lot of talk about this Bill 7 of 2025. I hadn't read it. So I immediately sent one of my junior lawyers to ensure that he got a copy. I had gotten the copy. I was reading it slowly, and then I decided, okay, it's time for me to try and put my voice to this and see what I can say about it, because being a lawyer and one of the voices that is very strong in ensuring that our constitution is not flouted or is not touched willy-nilly, I called a presser, and in the morning the press was jam-packed. I think now I'm recollecting, I was told by my media director and other people that we had over 56, I think, journalists packed in our boardroom. We were discussing the bill number 7, and I gave my opinion and what I felt. The previous day I had the occasion of having written a letter which I delivered to the Attorney General of this country, my good friend Mulilo Dimas Kabesha, and I basically said, look, this has to be withdrawn. And I thought it lacked legitimacy. I still think it does, because of the opinion that the way the cut of the day had gone about proposing constitutional amendments was not supported by any precedent, and I thought it was a wrong and bad precedent. And if established, we're going to have a government which will be dictating as to how a constitution can be, cherry-picked as to what can be amended. I was walking out of that presser. I was quite happy with myself. I walked into my office and my phone rang. I won't say from whom, but there was a question when I read the message. have you heard about your brother down south? In going in through my memory, I just realized, okay, this is intended for ACL. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's something wrong. I scrolled and I found nothing in terms of messages. It was just a question. So I called the ADC, and I said, and he said, unfortunately, Babwadi, I arrived yesterday, sorry. I'm not with the boss. And I said, but how is the boss? And he says, I'm not very sure. I said, have you heard anything? And he said, I'm not sure, but I'm hearing rumors. I said, can you use your channels and find out? Because I've got a message here which is cryptic, but I'm not sure what it is. Immediately I called my ADC and I said, I've received this news. Can you use your contacts as well to try and see if we can confirm this rumor? Because now I'm in shock. The moment that went out, I locked myself, went on my knees, and I started praying because I wasn't sure now. I had mixed emotions. I'm coming a presser, I'm receiving this news, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? Minutes later, phone call came, and it simply said, confirmed. I still locked myself up. I prayed. I was now having emotional backlashes and a roller coaster of memories. My ADC knocked. He came in and he said to me, double checked, double confirmed. And I understood from that moment that what I was reading was no longer a rumor, because two people using their own back channels had confirmed that news. I was devastated. I was devastated, Alex, because as a person, we were on the mend with my late older brother, the 6th Republican president. I had just been down south. Our discussions were fruitful.
When was that?
This last month.
That's
May.
You went to see.
I was in South Africa for what? Almost 6 days. And
How was it? Because there is conflicted information, of course, depending on who's posting it, on the status or the health of the 60th Republican president prior to his death last week on Thursday.
he was fine.
He
was fine. He was just fine. He was the usual joking, laughing. He didn't give the impression his illness was very serious. And from just talking to him, if you recall, after I had come back and before I took another trip, I think he had been interviewed by brother Sishua, and there were pictures. He was sitting in his usual laid back, laissez-faire kind of attitude, and he was joking. There was nothing to suggest that this is a man going through pain, this is a man who is suffering. No. I'll tell you, I haven't said this publicly, but he whispered about his illness to me when I attended a funeral service of Brother John Mayoka at Catholic Church of Chainda. He called and asked that I church with him, and I accepted, and he said we should go to this funeral. After that we'll be heading to Kasisi, and thereafter he wanted me to spend the day with him. So I spent the day practically with him, but it was in church. Now, if you've been to a Catholic church as much as I have, you note that they stand up, kneel. They have a lot of kneeling and standing up to do. And it was during one of those standing up and kneeling sessions that he said to me jokingly, he was nudging me and saying, hey, that was fit sana. I laughed and I said, Your Excellency, Philadelphia National Service, we've kept up. I still joke. And he says, oh, we're joking. Then he says to me, when we sat, he said, Nindwal. It was in passing. But then I leaned and I said, and he says, I've got 1 or 2 little problems that need attention. So I might be leaving to go outside the country, but we've got work to do. And I said, yeah, of course we do. He mentioned what the ailments were. I won't go public with that. But I felt a spear within me. Here's a man who was president confiding in me in church. It wasn't a confession, but he was just confiding, whispering to me, like, this is what I'm going through. But he made it seem in passing. When we reached Kasisi, the graveyard, I whispered back and said, President, we should feel Mwachilanda. He said, no, that's true, but don't worry about it. And he was like that. Even from a South African perspective, it was like that. There was nothing like, he's not walking, he's not, no, he was fine. He was fine. I don't know, I make no accusations, but I don't know what happened in South Africa. I don't know what happened when he went for that procedure. I wasn't there. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to accuse anybody. All I know is, at the time that even the pictures were flying around from our brother, the Shua doctor, there was nothing wrong. The ECL that was in South Africa was the ECL that I saw in those pictures. For me, there was nothing amiss. Not that would wow you. No.
Now, moving on, Thursday to now, today, the 9th of June 2025, a lot. First, it was the issue of confirmation information from the state players, the declaration or announcement of days allocated to winning the former president, and everything to do with the funeral arrangements has seen the country show its side of division.
Yes, it has.
And so let's talk about Thursday to now, the Zambia that you one day want to lead. Would you call it prosper?
Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate because I like being factual.
Sure.
I like being truthful. The relationship between my friend in State House today, Entitlements, and the late former Republican president, Edgar Lungu, was not healthy. And Lungu, my prayer was always that these two would find a time to reconcile for the sake of the country. I was always in prayer that one day they'll put their differences aside for the sake of the country. I must say that the way I knew Lungu, he was more than willing. If you put nation in front of you, but Lungu was more than willing to listen, sit, genuinely discuss, move on. Here's a perspective. I had personal differences with Lungu. Me, sitting here, Kelvin Fubebwalia, I had a mishap with Lungu. Principle over the constitution and whether he was eligible to stand or not. And I said no. I opposed him. I campaigned campaigned against him because I believed in my heart what I was doing was right. But here's a man who would pick up phone years later and say, Munikwisa Babwadi. And I said, I'm at home. Then he says, we need to meet. And we met. We talked. He put all differences aside to a point of having to break collar, as they say in West Africa. But we had a meal together, not once, many times. And we sat and ate together. And he said to me, it's time to put our differences aside. You were right. I was wrong. But let's move. This nation deserves better. So I know in my heart that Lungu was willing to have a conversation with my friend in State House. I can't say the same for my friend, and I say this from the way I know both characters.
Yeah, because I'm trying. This is my next question. You shared the 60th, of course. Now we can say you shared, and you still share a personal friendship with the 60th and 7th, and now you're bringing the topic of reconciliation.
Yes.
Why hasn't it worked? Which side is resisting, or which side was resisting to the reconciliation of this country?
I think my friend in State House today did not want a reconciliation.
You mean President Haga Ndechilema?
President Haga Ndechilema did not want to reconcile with the late President Lungu. I think he was taking political capital out of their feud, and I think he also didn't want to be seen to be the one pleading to reconcile. Now, when you're in leadership, whether you're right or wrong, you look at the general good, and that's where I think, with due respect, the current president missed it. He missed an opportunity to have Mr. Lungu and him reconcile. I know from information that privately he did try to send emissaries to see Lungu, because that was given to me as information. But you see, in politics, when you do something publicly, when you need to apologize, you should do it publicly. There's nothing wrong with saying I was wrong and I'm sorry. That's all.
Who's supposed to say sorry to?
Who's in authority now? Is Haga Ndechilema?
He was supposed to apologize to.
No, he was supposed to call Lungu. You remember at the funeral of the burial site, we were burying, I think, Kaunda, if you recall. I don't know what difference was going on then, but there was also a difference going on. And Lungu was going to his car, and journalists put microphones to his face and said, why don't you reconcile with your brother Haga Ndechilema? And he says, I don't like hypocrisy. If it's genuine reconciliation, I am prepared to sit and talk, but not hypocrisy. And I use those words against the sitting president. That was a cue for me. If Haga Ndechilema intended to cure that, he was being accused of being hypocritical, he should have reached out. For the sake of the country, can we reconcile? Can we resolve our differences? There's no harm, Alex, in having political differences. But if the political differences are going to harm the nation, you must be the bigger person. You're the one in authority. Zambians are looking at you now. You're the father figure. He used to be. You are now. So take the initiative. And that's what I expected from my good friend. He should have done that. I know that I'm not trying to put all the blame on Haga Ndechilema because of politics. No. I know him as a person. He's proud. He's very proud. Haga Ndechilema is a very proud person. Anyone who's associated with him will tell you HH is very proud, and for him to swallow his pride, it might take the moving of a mountain. But this is my observation. I could be wrong. And if I've said anything that is not reflective of the president, I apologize. But this is the person I know. And I know for a fact he needed to take that initiative. Like I said, I have differences with Lungu. We resolve those differences. And those were at the personal level. Now, this was at a national level. So, who was in authority? Who was the bigger person? Lungu was. So he called me. In this case, H was in authority. He should have called Lungu. Age aside, he should have called Lungu. He's the president. Lungu could not summon Haga in the HLM. You get the point there. It meant disrespect. You can't summon the president, but the president can summon you. You're a citizen. And that's what I expected. So for me, that's been a sad moment. Well, still, I've been following social media and certain developments. Today, was it today or yesterday? I'm not sure, but I think it's today, that the Minister of Home Affairs, my older brother, State Council Home Affairs Minister Mpundu, came and told the nation, let's move on in peace.
Yes, I can read part and parcel of this statement.
Yes.
He's appealing to members of the public to refrain from issuing inflammatory statements and hate speech pertaining to the funeral of the former president Edgar Lungu. Mr. Mpundu has called on the public to mourn together despite the different political affiliations and convictions in order to honor the memory of the man who once held the highest office in the nation, stating that Mr. Lungu's death is a collective loss for the nation, and therefore it is important that during this time of national mourning and as the country awaits the arrival of Mr. Lungu's return from South Africa, support be offered to the bereaved family and uphold the values of peace and dignity.
Right.
The Home Affairs Minister talked about how he presided various ministries, including the Ministry of Home Affairs,
Correct.
Ministry of Defense, and in general, his political life and influence in this country at some point. My question still goes back to what the country is witnessing.
But that's part of what I wanted to talk about. That's what the country is witnessing.
Sure.
You see, you must be very, I don't know how to put this without sounding difficult, but you must be very sensitive when you come and make such a statement. Yes, you're in your portfolio as Minister of Home Affairs, and you must show that authority. But are you the right person to issue such a statement, knowing the history between your ministry and the former late president? I say this because it is under Jack Mwimbu's reign as Minister of Home Affairs that the late president was refused or denied permission for this medical treatment in South Africa 3 times. On one of those occasions, pulled off the plane. It is under your ministry that the Home Affairs Immigration Department falls. It is under your ministry that Edgar Lungu was being stopped from merely jogging. Just jogging in the streets, no, it's political. It is under your ministry that the late president could not freely go to church, pay a courtesy call on a bishop. You had the police there. And then you come and read such a statement. Are you being sensitive? My point is, the statement is correct. With due respect, it is. But are you the right person to come and preach peace when you never showed peace when the man was alive? This is where sometimes we must be humane in our approach. It's not just because I have this authority and I've got to do it. Have a face. Have a face. Show that you are understanding the sensitivity of the subject and the people you're talking to. That statement could have been issued by anybody, but not Jack Mwimbu. He has no moral right. In my humble view, the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs has no moral right to issue such a statement when his ministry was blocking Lungu and he watched. It's under his ministry, if you remember, we had kids when he was escorting his wife to go to deck for a statement, that kids was shouting and insulting. Kids were imported, we know they were imported from wherever they were imported, escorting him all the way to deck offices and insulting him, insulting the former president. And the Ministry of Home Affairs, the police did nothing. And Jack Mpundu must do that statement today. He doesn't qualify. That statement should be issued by somebody other than the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Are you saying the Ministry of Home Affairs should excuse themselves?
No.
In this spirit?
No. They should have made another person. What about my young brother, Honorable Mweto?
Yes.
He's chief government spokesperson. He could have read that statement.
He's also...
on behalf of the Ministry of Home Affairs. There was no need. I'm trying to make a point here, Alex. There was no need to separate the two statements. We have the government spokesperson. He should have read that and the statement that he read together. Keep Jack Mpundu out of it for now. Activity.
You talked about the treatments of election 2021 of the 60th Republican president, and mostly, like many other voices, they are siding to unfair treatment on ECL. And the Ministry of Home Affairs, I mean the Ministry of Information and Media Minister says, of course, the argument has come through with regards to entitlements and with the withdrawal of entitlements. Let me read part and parcel of his script. Cornelius Mweto says the withdrawal of entitlements for former President Edgar Lungu were not necessitated by government but based on law which prescribes that the former president who is in active politics cannot benefit from entitlements of a former president. Mr. Mweto has bemoaned the politics being championed by the opposition, I believe, which includes you, which is the international reputation that the country enjoys. He further notes that the 60th Republican president, Dr. Lungu, is the only former president of Zambia who has had his immunity lifted, and that president, that Republican President Entitlements, holds no against the late former president. Your response?
Yes, it's a very solid statement. I don't have any qualms with that. President Edgar Lungu, and I'm not one of those who's saying that the government withdrew those benefits of the late president per se. I think if you followed the sequence of events and you know our short history with the late 6th Republican president, he decided to come back to active politics himself at the memorial service of the 5th Republican president, Michael Chilufya, at the graveyard. And he said, I'm coming back to defend and protect democracy because there are some surrogates who, he said, were being used by the current government to try and sabotage the PF. At that point, he was willing to forego the house for Nsunzu, where he was being kept. He was willing to forego the benefits. He decided. It was a conscious decision. On this one, I don't put the blame on government. He decided. That was his choice. But the choice was necessitated because of circumstances which he was going through. Circumstances which he felt he had to take a stand for the opposition. So it's not like he just woke up and said, I don't want my benefits. No, he was forced. And as a politician, he had to take a stand. He took that stand, and I salute him for taking that stand. I have never accused government of taking those benefits away from the late president because I knew he decided on his own to give up, and he moved to another house. And even when he went to South Africa, he went on his own accord. He paid for himself to go. He was looking after himself. Government wasn't looking after Edgar Lungu in his last few months. No. In his last few years, I think, a year plus. No. He decided He didn't need government money. If that's what it meant for him to demonstrate that he was willing to sacrifice for democracy, sacrifice for the sake of the poor Zambians and the opposition in this country, he decided. So I salute him for that. Mwetwa is right on that score. Government did not willy-nilly withdraw those. The president handed over. But you see, when he handed over, that's when I think the current government intensified, and that's the sad part, intensified his disturbance, his non-enjoyment of freedoms. I think in one of the clips you'll see prominently running in social media, he kept saying he felt like he was under house arrest. It's a term legally, which means you're not free to move, you're not free to, socialize. You're locked up. You're not physically enchained, no, but you can't leave certain surroundings. If you leave, you need permission from your captors. So he felt he was in captivity, and to a certain extent he was right, because he was the president of this country. He was commander-in-chief of this country. He handed over power willingly after he lost power at Heroes Stadium.
And now there is a call that unity should prevail.
Yes.
What you feel was unfair to the 60th Republican president, and there is a justification of thought on the part of the administration,
yes,
just giving their outline to say we were fair, we never lifted his immunity, and as what the Minister of Home Affairs says, let's be careful, let's honor this man with dignity that he deserves. There is a clear observation that the country is divided now.
Yes.
Okay. The declaration of the house of mourning, over Dear Lodge, and there is another funeral setting where you went there
yesterday
and donated. So this division, how should the country move on? Okay,
Alex.
Sure.
Let's not give the Zambians the impression that we're not Africans. We are Africans, and Zambian in particular.
Sure.
Ichiwe mbachitila, and I'm sorry for those that don't understand Bemba, but ichiwe mbachitila ti ushuku insofu ifuile neli ashiba polian sofu. We have a fallen hero, former Republican president who has died. So all discussions in the bars, in the clubs, in the homes will be about this issue. What point am I driving at? As traditional Africans, Zambians in particular, there is no law that says you can only have one mourning place, one mourning home. No. You've heard traditionally in Africa that Mpundu or someone can die here in Lusaka, on the Copper Belt, in Livingstone, but they come from Kasama, or they come from Mwinilunga. The people in Mwinilunga will say, we don't have the means to come to Lusaka, but we're going to hold a funeral here. Whilst you mourn wherever you're mourning and do your burials, we shall also mourn where we are. It's simple. There is no division about that. I think government is being overly sensitive. Let me appeal to the government. My appeal to the government: help the Patriotic Front with mobile toilets at the Secretariat. That's what's missing. Help the Patriotic Front with water. That's what's missing. Be humane. There's nothing wrong with the Patriotic Front hosting a funeral at the Secretariat. Nothing wrong. They are breaking no law. They feel a connection at their Secretariat. There is no connection at Belvedere. However, nothing stops dignitaries, corporate staff, senior government officials, friends of the president, and other dignitaries to go to Belvedere to go and sign the book of condolences. Nothing. And no one says that if you go to a funeral, you must find thousands of mourners. That's when there's a funeral. No. No. A funeral can be held anywhere. I am telling you that I am aware of homes in Livingston which have been declared as mourning places. Those people don't want to come to Lusaka, not because they just don't want, but maybe they have no means. I am aware of, in the golf club in Kasama, they've put up a place where people from Mbala, Senga Hill, Luingu, Kasama are mourning. In Mansa, the same thing. On the Copperbelt, it's the same thing. Central Province, Northwestern Province, like that. Allow people to mourn. Lungu was a national president, and he can be mourned from anywhere. So where you declare to have a funeral, that is where Lungu's funeral is. It doesn't matter. And the president, the government of the UPND must not be overly sensitive. There's nothing happening there. I went and donated stuffs at the PF yesterday. I visited the funeral place which has been designated by the party. There's nothing happening apart from mourning. Nothing. No one is planning anything sinister there, breaking any law. No. I heard my young brother, obviously, the provincial chairperson for Lusaka, UPND, come on social media and start lambasting the PF, lambasting the opposition in general. No, you're doing that. And quoting the constitution like it's, I'm thinking to myself, obvious, bola punch much one. There's nothing constitutional about if you're Yolanda. There's nothing, anything constitutional there. No, this is not the act that deals with former presidents, how they're buried and things. It's not in the constitution. No, don't mislead. You know, the Zambians' problem is they always want to give the impression they know something about the law. No. Let us respect the Lungu family. Let us respect their wishes. My prayer, my appeal to the government is let us engage Lungu family. I think my young brother, State Council, Honorable Mulambo Ahimbe, came back after engaging with my young brother Makebi Zulu, South Africa, Tasila and the family there, and they came up with a position that this is what led to the secretary of the cabinet, my friend Patrick Kangwa, announcing the death of the 6th Republican president and saying on this day we expect the remains to come back and government will move in. There's still a few intricacies that need to be resolved, and the family must still be engaged, because as Africans, again, Alex, I'll insist, even when I'm married to my wife, you may be married to your wife. This body of yours, Alex, when you die, you've got your people. They must be engaged. Your wife cannot just wake up today, I'm going to bury my husband because it was my husband. No. In this case, the Lungu family's input in how all this is going to be done is cardinal. The wife, the children, relatives, close and extended, and otherwise, they must be engaged. Let's not be too muzungalized. We're not white people. We're Africans, Zambians. We've got our tradition. Tuchindi kentambi shesu.
Right.
How we bury people is known. Who we engage before we bury is known. Let us not jump the gun just because we are in authority. It doesn't work. You're going to find the family very difficult when you begin to superimpose, and that's the problem I have with this government. Superimposition because you're in authority. No. Because you don't know what can come out of his mouth. Allow them to mourn, and when it's time, engage. If they think and feel not now, come tomorrow, give them time. I know there's a rush, that this must be rushed. Let's get over and done with this. We've got a nation to run. But if you do this in a hurried manner, you're going to hurt a lot more people than you think as a government, and you're going to lose respect and lose face internationally, because people will be saying, but where was the family? For example, I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm saying as an example, if you decide that the remains of the late president arrive at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport tomorrow, the government says we're taking over, this is a state funeral, as obvious Mwali Teta was suggesting. And then Edgar Lungu, Tasila, Aliso, Chiesu, Jane, Willie, and the other children decide we are not coming. Do what you want. Do you see the impasse? We must be very careful. We must be extremely careful. We've been through this thing before. You remember, during the Kaunda era, late Kenneth David Kaunda, our first Republican president, at his death, there was a fight with government at the time. No, his wish was that he must be buried next to his wife. Where? In State Lodge, where Betty is lying. That was a fight. Third parties were engaged. Negotiators were brought in. Government said, this is the law. Please allow us to do this. This was not an ordinary person. The history of where we're coming from, and as a person, is still hurting, but it can be resolved. It can be harmonized with the church, senior members of the family, senior citizens of this country who can engage via Esther, engage Tasila and the family and say, let us help the country. Once that healing process is there, then we can say, okay, fine, let's move. It's not like it's difficult. It's not insurmountable, but let's not rush it.
All right. We're almost coming to the end of this discussion. As we close, and before I allow you to give your final remarks,
yes, sir.
When this advert was posted on our social media page, that's Prime Television Zambia, that you'll be joining us for Oxygen of Democracy, I noticed a number of messages that were coming as comments, saying the chosen one, referring to you. And it takes me back to other stories I've come across in the last few days, that you are the chosen one, you are the one that the 60th president nominated you to be at the helm of the opposition in the run-up to 2026 elections, and everything in relation to that. You are here now, and take us back. That 7 days that you spent last month with the late president, was it part and parcel of you being anointed and being prepared for you to be the torch bearer of the opposition in the 2026 elections?
I'll repeat my answer as I've said before. We are mourning. Let us mourn the 6th Republican president in peace, with all his honors and with respect. I don't want to do politics right now. A time will come when that subject will arise. My brothers and I in Tonse will sit, will discuss, and we'll move forward from there. I don't want to start a storm in a teacup. No. This is not the time.
How, and our critics, especially, it's an interesting time in this country. They are celebrated critics of the opposition. So critics of the opposition are anticipating drama in the coming days.
They want drama.
The so-called unity of the opposition is coming to an end. And part of your message yesterday when you were donating at the Secretariat of the Patriotic Front, you did say that you promised to ensure that the opposition political parties remains in unity.
Yes. My promise, undertaking to the late president, to my friends in Tonse, is that we should work together as a united front. All those naysayers doomsayers who are wishing that the opposition can fragment into pieces, yeah, let them wish. Let them wish. We know some of them. I don't want to bring names up here, but I will not dignify such comments with any response. Not at this hour. We're in mourning, and some of those just people looking for numbers on social media. But I wish I could believe them, because if they told me that they could see through a crystal ball and this is what they see, then I'll say, yeah, okay, maybe. But how many of their predictions have come true? None. So let's leave it there, and let's respect the Lungu family, respect what the government is doing, and then see that these two forces can harmonize, and we quickly put to rest our late sixth Republican president. That's my wish. That's my prayer. Those two follow. And anybody who is a reasonable Zambian who would wish that the opposition disintegrates, the opposition goes into all sorts of pieces, well, he's got another thing coming, whoever he is, whoever she is.
All right. We're coming to the end of the program.
Yes.
Your closing remarks as
so my prayer is basically that I want to appeal to the Lungu family, Wamaeva Esther, Tasila. I know they are the ones in South Africa. I want to appeal to my young brother Makebi Zulu, who is leading the family as counsel, to give the best counsel that they can. I also want to appeal to our senior citizens who have any influence on the Lungu family to look on the other side. We have a nation which is grieving, a nation which is seemingly in confusion because there seems to be no clear direction as to how we are going to bury our late president. So once they put their heads together and in prayer, let them come up with a solution so that the Zambians can mourn in peace, and we as a nation can get back to being united. I thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Alright, that's all for you today, lovely viewers. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video you just watched in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers. Once again, I go by the name of Mutati Mpundu. I love you, peace, I gotta go.